Hey everyone, this is Taylor Yates with Daily Esports. I had the opportunity to sit down and speak with Ballatw about his come up in the Fortnite scene, becoming an analyst and caster, and what's next for him. So sit down, take a listen, and enjoy. Hey Balla, thanks for taking the time to sit down and speak with me. If you're ready to go, we can hop right in and start this interview.
Yeah, sure. Sounds great, man. Thanks for speaking with me.
Of course. So, the first thing, let's start off by telling the viewers who you are, what you do. Describe yourself as if someone's never heard of Balla TW before.
Yeah, so I'm Ballatw. I am a competitive Fortnite caster slash analyst. So that means that I'm the person talking to the audience when we're watching a competitive Fortnite game and trying to walk you through the steps, the stages, and all the action that's happening inside the game, and hopefully enhance your viewing experience by bringing you the most exciting stories and hyping up the action as relevant. Besides that, I make educational content and commentaries on YouTube and other platforms like Twitch and Twitter, where I break down better Fortnite games and try to teach people the things that the players are doing, the pro players are doing, and why they're so good.
Balla does some great stuff, so I'd recommend checking it out if you have not already. And Balla, where are you from?
I am from Maryland, from the US.
All right. And so, when did your video game career start? What was the first video game you played? Uh, what system was it on?
First game I ever played was probably like Duke Nukem. Well, okay, that's not true. I definitely played some of those old 8-bit games. But Duke Nukem was like my first FPS, and then I got into StarCraft, which was my first, like, I guess any sort of competitive game where we could play against each other, and like things like GoldenEye and stuff like that. So with my brothers and whatnot. But through high school, I got into Counter Strike, and we made a team and discovered the world of competitive games. And from there, I've been just lost within Counter Strike, StarCraft, Quake, a whole rack of different games. And just the competitiveness brings it to me, and I just get so excited about playing competitive games.
That's pretty cool. So, when you were growing up just playing games, did you have aspirations to become a caster or an analyst?
Definitely like in spurts. Like in Counter Strike, when I moved from overseas back to the States, I got really into watching the professional scene of Counter Strike. And at that point, I had taken a couple of different like spurts into casting, doing stuff on my own, trying to cast with for actual games. And it's kind of fun. I didn't really consider it like a thing that I wanted to do. It was like cool for me and it was fun, but didn't seem like a career at the time. And then continued on. StarCraft became a thing, kind of brought esports in general a little bit more mainstream. I did some amateur casting for a couple tournaments here and there, but again, still nothing serious. I was in college at the time. I never was like, oh, cool, yeah, I could be a caster. I thought I did a decent job at it, but obviously, your first casts aren't at all a good job. Regardless, it was, I got my feet wet, I guess, a little bit in casting, and when I saw the opportunity in Fortnite and I started doing it a little bit, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'm actually think I could be pretty good at this. And plus, all of my favorite like esports figures have been casters. People like Day9 from StarCraft 2, people like Apollo from StarCraft, and then a couple of the people in the Counter Strike scene like Sadikist and Henry G. A lot of these guys that I look up to are casters or were players moved into casting, and so just seeing them be as passionate as they are makes me think that, yeah, okay, cool, this is a place that I can bring my passion and expand to it to a lot of different people. So that's kind of what draws me to casting.
That's awesome. That's a different route than most people would take, I'd say. Now, do you know if those StarCraft VODs of Bola Caston in the early days are out there somewhere?
I don't know. I don't think so. I highly doubt it. They're definitely not on my Twitch channel. But maybe, you never know.
Someone will wind up finding those after this if they know they're out there. Now let's shift gears a little bit. and move more towards Fortnite, when did you personally start playing the game?
End of season 3, I think. So about March 2018, I
Okay.
believe.
So when you began in Fortnite, was the goal to become a caster or analyst, or was it just another game that you were hopping into?
Mm, Definitely not at the start. At the start, it was just another game that I was hopping into that I was good and that was blown up on Twitch. And my friends were like, "You should stream it." I'm like, "Okay, sounds like fun." Because I was done with competitive Counter Strike at the time, so it was just another fun thing to do. I started doing it, and then I watched Ninja Vegas. I didn't know there was a competitive scene at all. I was like, "Well, I don't see how you could play." I was very much on the battle royales can't be competitive. Like there's never ever going to be a battle royale scene in esports. I was on that boat, and then I saw Ninja Vegas, and I was like, hold on, never mind, this is amazing. And I heard Courage and Lupo casting at the time. I was like, okay, well, this definitely could be competitive. I have played now some scrims. I've played some competitive. I've started competing, and I really think that this is has the potential to be the next big thing, the next big esports, the next big League of Legends or Counter Strike or whatever. And from then on, I wanted to get good enough where I had a base and people could trust my information and what I say. Um, and then I always wanted to transition into being a caster slash analyst. I always wanted to be on the analyst desk. We haven't had one of those really yet, but that was my goal.
All right, you guys had one at World Cup. You were kind of walking around, not necessarily a desk.
No, I'm not thinking of that. So the analyst section at World Cup is basically like, I don't know, it's highlights and breaking down plays, kind of, not really breaking them down, and like introductions, right? And so that wasn't really what I was expecting. It was definitely something new and fun, and it was definitely fun. It was a blast hanging out there with Zeke and Sundown. Um, but that's not what I'm talking about when I say an analyst. I'm talking about the traditional like one person hosting a desk with three goofballs who talk about the game and just have a good old time on the desk.
Gotcha, fair enough. And you do more than simply just analyze and cast. You help put on events, you're an admin for T1 scrims, you put together production. Tell me about that and how that's going.
Yeah, so I feel that there is a significant lack of pretty much anything in the bottom tiers of Fortnite, both third parties and from Epic, just in general. And part of that is because number one, nobody's figured out how to do actually track and actually run tournaments or actually run leagues or run ladders. So I've been kind of behind the scenes getting those tools developed. I've, added a lot to what the current Mayhem client is right now. A lot of that was built because of me. I built some tools in the background as well, trying to, build out a scene where it's easy to both queue for games and score the games. And then I've also obviously done my productions where I will load up a bunch of streams and try to cast off of it and observe off of it. That's kind of the main things, right? There's nobody knows how to do a production for a tournament, and nobody knows how to run a tournament. So I've kind of been trying to help as much as I can with the limited time I have, and it's been going pretty well. The main incentive though is that there's nothing, and I really want that. I feel like to have a healthy Fortnite ecosystem to really establish that potential that Fortnite has, it needs to have a strong base at the bottom and not just at the top.
I respect that. You're looking out for the little guys in the community and simply not trying to facilitate help towards the pro and big name players. We really do need to continue to help foster the lower level or bottom of the community because in order to have a successful and long-term game, which I would assume we both would like to see, we need to help those players and help facilitate their success because ultimately they're going to become the fan base and hopefully new pro players down the line. Now, this transitions well into my next question. What advice or what would you tell an upcoming player that you think would be helpful for them?
Definitely just play as much as possible and realize that Fortnite is not the structure is not there for you to just play and be noticed, right? You have to do your own thing. You have to network, you have to make content, you have to get people figuring out and finding out who you are. They have to have some way to discover you. And if all you're doing is playing tournaments and trying to get to the top of the leaderboard, they might find you through a leaderboard, but as of right now, that those opportunities are far and few between. So really, you need to be doing a lot of other stuff so that you can get discovered, I think.
Now, do you mean content creation? I know you mentioned networking. Could you elaborate on that a little more?
Yeah. You need to be making content. Otherwise, there's no point of networking, whether content is educational, highlights, funny, whatever. I don't know. Like, you have to build to your strengths, right? Don't just do the same thing that everybody does. I mean, some cases, those are the ways to do it, right? You might just be a really, really, really good builder, and a lot of people want to see that. So make that content and then network, because as a as an aspiring player, you need to find other good players that you can play against, other good players that you can start forming teams with, and other good players that you can learn from. I think we have many, many examples of a lot of up and coming players who might not be the best, but they put themselves into the right circle of other up and coming players or other pros. And from there, they all of a sudden grow into something amazing. I think of Zypha as an example, right?
Hmm.
Zypha was somebody who, for a long time, was stuck. He just recently got signed to Team Sentinels. He was stuck playing just FNPL scrims and a bunch of different things, but he networked with so many different people, and he found a group of people that he can hang out with in Booga and his friends, and yeah, he struck gold, and he grew as a player immensely ever since he had that friendship, and from there, I mean, the rest is history. He's signed to Sen now, and he's doing big things.
I'd say he's doing pretty well for himself now. So, you as a player, caster, analyst, tell me what you think the best meta was, if you have a favorite drop spot, favorite weapon. Just tell me a little bit about how you feel about the game. I know that was a lot, so attack that question however you like.
Okay, I think I'll go for the what was my favorite like meta, um,
Yes.
and honestly, I think it's right now. I think we're finally at a point where we have big teams, which I thought was necessary as a next step for viewing and digesting the competitive Fortnite experience. I've said it many times. Solos has 100 people. That's 100 stories you need to follow. Sure, it could be exciting in the end game, but I can't tell you the stories of everybody you want to watch as a caster. I mean, I can do my best, and I still think that it is viable to do, but it is difficult. It is so difficult from both a casting perspective and a production perspective. But then, as far as the game, too, like this meta, even though, there's mobility issues and all that, it really, really feels like a battle royale. Even though it's nade season, even though we struggle with that, still struggle with some splodes. The loot pool, the map, the mobility, everything on this version of the game right now is phenomenal. Really, it really is.
I would have to agree with you there. The game feels like it's in a pretty good spot right now. Definitely some things that could be cleaned up, but overall it's in a good place. And now the holiday season's coming upon us. If you could create a wish list for Fortnite, what would be on that wish list?
As far as meta,
Well, anything. I guess I kind of geared it towards the meta, but you can wish for anything you like.
All right. Yeah, sounds good. So as far as meta, I think I still want them to experiment with a lot more of these like bandage cannon type items, not necessarily healing items, but like really interesting utility items that add an element to the game that are just like really, really interesting, new, and fun, and can be exciting too. I think of Commandment's Clutch over the weekend. I'd like to see them experiment with that, like those, especially the idea of an item carrying or being two slots, right? I'd definitely like them to change the RPG to two slots and go from there. Kind of like these power items that don't necessarily do damage. They don't necessarily, ruin people's games or make it very strong. They're not a mech, but they are a interesting element that you kind of have to play around. But besides the meta, I want to see real arena system, a real ranked system, so that we can stop with the trying to develop all these random tools and random ladders. I want to see arena games that I can hop in and I have a stacked game on my hand, and it is real competitive Fortnite. I want somebody to be able to experience real competitive Fortnite whenever they want. And as far as I'm concerned right now, we're getting close with T1, but with the tools as they are, Epic is the only people who can do that, and the game is the only thing that can really, really do that.
All right, sweet. Now let's shift gears a little bit towards the FNCS. We just had the first weekend, as this was recorded right after their week one. Now let me hear your thoughts about the format and how that went.
Yeah, I think the first weekend of FNCS was a complete knock out of the park, with the exception of the issues in EU, where hopefully those get fixed in short notice, but it is getting a little worrisome that time after time we continue to have issues plaguing the first week of tournaments or the first iteration of something. In this case, the top 500 players were supposed to qualify for the second round, and only the top 200 were being allowed to play. But besides that, this has been one of the best. This was one of the best viewing experiences ever for me in Fortnite already, and there wasn't even a broadcast. So that says a lot. Really, it really does. The squads was a joy to watch. The performance that Zaitsaf High Sky Commandment put on was incredible. I don't think anybody's ever going to match that for a while. Definitely not.
No
Well, I don't know. Who knows? I'm hoping. EU was a blast to watch. Just really everything was really good too, and there wasn't too much of this like, oh well, this team lost because this, and there's no controversial anything in the game right now. Where it's like, well, this squad, like it's not ruining the storylines. It's not taking away from the players, which I think has been plaguing the game for a long time, where the game takes away from the players. Where as a caster, I am pretty much forced to talk about the game over the players. Like, for example, the drum gun coming back in that World Cup week. And some of the other changes like to Tilted and stuff. That has happened so many times that it gets frustrating. This weekend of FNCS, complete knockout of the park. Squads knock out of the park. It's not as laggy as people thought it would. It is, if anybody has any criticisms about squads, really, most of the time they're not complaining about squads. They're complaining about, not getting half-half, that kind of thing. Where I really think that mentality needs to go, because time and time again we see teams win games without half and half. Sure, it helps, but at the end of the day, this still is a BR. We still have an element of RNG that we have to deal with, and we as players, our goal or their goal is to mitigate the RNG as much as possible. So no complaints from me, really, none. Another note too is like the format of customs on Sunday is amazing, right? That is what competitive Fortnite is to me. I'm really not interested at all in the opens or the semis. I really don't care for the most part about those games, not only because it's so hard to watch, uh, pretty much like 6, 7, 8 games happening at the same time that are relevant. And then at the same time, too, it's like, well, these games aren't even stacked. They're not even playing the same people over and over. So there's no consistency in game to game. There's nothing. It's so difficult. I'm not interested in that. I don't feel like that's really competitive Fortnite. I feel like that's competitive pub stomping to some extent, especially in some of the smaller regions. It is pretty entertaining in NA East and EU because they have really, really stacked games. But the final stage being customs is a beautiful thing to watch.
I would agree. The 6 game format works out really well. You can follow those storylines both from a production side as well as the viewership. There's only one game going on at a time. You can see what places are getting contested, who's winning those battles. There's just a lot more depth that you can add when you're not trying to watch 600 players or more at once, or even in the opens, thousands of players. So it breeds a better viewership and quality of production. Now I'm going to put you on the spot here and ask you some predictions. Now let's go with the two biggest regions, NA East and EU. Which squad you picking?
Okay. I think EU will probably. Well, okay. So let's preface this for a second. In going back, I might be an analyst. But this is something I think that's going to plague VRs. Is that people have this expectation that you can make predictions in a BR with 25 teams. 25 teams is much better than making predictions in a solo tournament. But it is very, 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 very difficult to actually predict anything, especially given the fact that I don't even know who really has qualified yet. I don't know who's going to get contested. I don't know any of this. So with that said, in EU, so far, the teams that's impressed me the most and I think has the most potential for growth over the season is probably Beehive Crew, Chapix, and Ritz. They've been doing a lot of experimental stuff. They've been playing really well in both the cups that the EU puts on, like the Fishy Cup, the War Legends Invitationals, and then also FNCS itself. As far as NA, man, I really, really, really want to go for, of course, SAF, High Sky and Commandments. But I feel like I'd be jumping the gun, no pun intended, because it's only one tournament. It's only 1 week that they've been playing together. I still think there could be some clashing of the joining of the two squads that ended up getting snaked. So with that, it's tough. Let's see who won in NA's the trios.
That was Macklin, Zexro, and Calc. They have Vinny now.
Yeah, and they didn't even qualify.
Nah.
So, the other team that's impressed me is the Bizzle in them, but then Liquid Luck. I always forget about them. Liquid Luck. I'm hoping that they can pull through. I'm gonna go with them because they got second in FNCS trios. They add 72 hours, which I think is a very, very solid add to that entire trio. And they did second in the warm-up. They didn't qualify for Sunday. I used that argument against Xero and them. They are definitely somebody I think everybody's underrating, so even me, clearly. But yeah, I'm going to go with the Liquid Luck team. 72 Hours, Chap, Vivid, and Sizzlucky.
All right, sweet. I like those predictions. I'm a big fan of both those teams as well. So I know you said it's going to be hard to predict, but something that we can talk about is the certain characteristics or aspects of a squad or player that will make them successful and push them to the next level in a potential championship. What do you think those are?
I think chemistry and how long that chemistry is, how much experience they have in real game tournament situations is very, very valuable in squads. So a team like Chap, 72 Hours, Vivid, and Sizlucky, who have played with each other multiple tournaments. I mean, they spread obviously because this is the first time we've had squads, but I think that is super, super, super valuable in terms of like Zayt Saf. Sure, that duo has a lot of experience with each other, and High Sky and Commandment, they have one season of experience together, but then the entire squad together really doesn't have much. So that's why I kind of feel like maybe this weekend was a honeymoon period, maybe. But then again, I think of the combined minds of just High Sky and Zayt together, the two different IGLs and two different people who really push the envelope in terms of everything, competitive Fortnite end games and everything. They are very, very smart. That IQ mixed with the chemistry and mixed with the longevity of the team and experience in real tournament situations is going to be what I think is most important. And that's actually, like, if you think back to ESL Katowice, that experience, that tournament experience, is why Zayt and Staff won. They did not crumble under the pressure at all, whereas a lot of the other teams were.
Right, and if I'm not mistaken, Saf and Zayt teamed up with Zypha the morning of the trios tournament when they qualified that week and went on to obviously reach the season finals in trios. So they have a tendency to perform really well on the first going with a new team.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it was an
Go ahead.
interesting thing that happened over the trios. And again, kind of shows. I mean, I'm not sure how well they did they did too well, but just that addition of somebody that you don't have that much experience with, specifically tournament experience, is gonna not prove well. Like that's the thing. I don't think a lot of these EU and NA squads realize is you need to have played tournaments and gone through the mud and played poorly in tournaments and played well in tournaments with your team to really be consistent and be at the top. We haven't really seen that in a while, ever since pretty much ESL Katowice was like the turning point for all this, where it's like, okay, well, one team will do well and the next tournament they're going to do poorly, right? There was no consistent. There wasn't Bizzle winning every single, or doing really, really well at every single tournament. I think now we're coming back to that with this squads era and this trios era, this FNCS thing. I think we're coming back to that.
Awesome, awesome. And before we move on, do you have any other thoughts on the FNCS?
Hmm. Um, I just hope they don't change the game mode that we're playing again next season. I hope we're just sticking with squads or at least what I want to know. I don't care what we stick with. I just want to know how, like, is this it? Are we changing again? What's next? Right? Because I think people already need to be thinking about what's next. I think it's unfair and doesn't make for the best competitive experience, both as a player and as a viewer, if we do not have a consistent game mode. So that's kind of my final thought on FNCS. I think it's a great format. I think it's a great system. They can make improvements all around, but it's working out, and hopefully it'll turn into something, I don't know, maybe next FNCS season or whatever they want to call it. We'll have a LAN ending where, you know, we qualify all the different regions. They play their finals or whatever, and then the top 10 or whatever from there, each regional final, however they cut it out, goes to a LAN, and we have 200 random people across the globe coming and playing. That would be crazy. That would be epic.
Gotta agree with you there. That'd be a great ending to one of these Fortnite tournaments, and I hope we see it soon in the future here. Let's go back to talking about Balla as a person. What do you like to do in your spare time besides gaming?
Hmm. Um, I don't do too much outside of gaming these days, but I like consuming content. I love watching TV shows. I'm super into a couple right now. Reading, just playing all sorts of games with friends. I used to play a lot of basketball. I used to play a lot of sports, but developed arthritis, so now I can't really do that. Just generally, having a good time in life, because gaming has been my hobby, my passion forever, and now it's my job. So it's like I have to have something else. Not really. I don't think so.
Cool, man. And what did you do before you went full time into gaming and esports?
Yeah, I was a electrical and computer engineer. Designs both medical devices and also industrial manufacturing equipment. Um, Design like the PCBs, the printed circuit boards inside those devices.
Good for you, man. That's pretty impressive.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. And do you have a favorite player, caster, streamer, anyone like that? I know you said you look up to some casters, so maybe your favorite caster?
Favorite caster is by far Sadakist in Counter Strike. Just the way that he carves words and carves sentences and has such a diverse vocabulary and is so quick witted and on the fly. Like that's amazing to me. So he's definitely my favorite caster, and he's kind of straying away from casting, which makes me sad. Other casters would be like Quick Shot. I think his on-camera presence is amazing, and I really like watching him. Even though I don't know anything about League of Legends, even though I'm not a big League of Legends fan, still makes me happy just listening to him. And non-casters, I'm constantly watching Booga. I'm constantly watching Aspect. I'm constantly watching people like Kylix and Kuna and Moki. These mechanical, just like beasts. It's just so much fun to watch. I don't necessarily care about people, talking to their stream or whatever. I come from a StarCraft background where I would watch the Korean guys stream on Twitch with just K-pop blasting, no chat interaction. They would every once in a while type like "lol" in chat, but very little English. They didn't care, but they would still get viewers, and I would just love watching how good they are mechanically. It was so easy to me just to get lost in the clicks. That was very fun to me. So that's why people like Booga, even though Booga's hilarious, Booga Aspect, these guys are hilarious. It's just so much fun to watch mechanical gods.
Finally, here, what's been your favorite experience that you've had within gaming or esports?
Probably I'm from Massachusetts, so I went to the Cisco Boston major, and being a CS guy, it was not only emotional but exciting and intense to watch the finals there, because it's been probably what was it over 10 years since any North American team won a real international tournament where and then it was just the home crowd and everything. That was magical. That's something I really, really hope we can see in Fortnite.
Awesome. And then in closing here, what's next for Ballatw? What do you got going on?
What's next for me is just more casting. I'm gonna be trying to do as much as I can when the opportunity presents itself. So hopefully we can keep doing that. A more consistent content schedule, a more consistent stream schedule, and possibly get back to playing at a high level. I've been playing every morning as much as I can, and I'm really enjoying just playing the game at a high level again. So possibly competing in tournaments, and who knows, if they don't do a broadcast for FNCS again, maybe you'll see me forming a squad.
Ooh, that'd be interesting. Well, that's all I got for you, man. Is there anything else you'd like to say or share about Ballatw?
No, man. Just thank you for having me. Thanks for talking. Yeah, I've been really enjoying the stuff you've been putting out recently, man. Both on the platform you have on Twitter and just everything that you've been sharing. It's been a blast. So thanks for talking to me, man.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I'll keep putting in the work. And I really appreciate having you on and you sharing your time and thoughts and story with me. So, best of luck to you, man, and take care.